Southerners talk different. Southerners have a way with words, and there are many variations on the celebrated Southern drawl. Some phrases used by Southerners are famous and famously misused by Northerners. The contraction of you all to y'all is, as every Southerner knows, never used to refer to fewer than two people. A sure sign that someone is a native Yankee trying to talk Southern is when they ask something like, "When will y'all come over?" of a single person. Southerners also instinctively know time limits when expressed in words. When a Southerner explains that he is fixin' to go to town, it is obvious that the actual act of going to town is still an undetermined length of time in the near, but not immediate future. On the other hand, when a Southerner says, "I'm going directly," that means passengers should yell shotgun and scramble for the door. Southerners know distances can be expressed in simple words. Over yonder means a pretty fair piece, perhaps across the ridgeline. That is much farther away than hollering distance, up to several hundred yards away, which is the distance that a big-throated holler could be heard. And Southerners know the difference between holler and hollow, even though they are pronounced the same. Most Yankees have never used either word in a sentence like, "I hollered up the hollow for Jeb, but it was such a fair piece he didn't hear me. I reckon he must have been way over yonder." All of these are spoken with the famous Dixie drawl. The Southern drawl has many variations, but all are authentic Dixie. Stretch out words, add pauses, drop an occasional G from ing, and sprinkle your speech with Southern phrases such as, "looks like something the cat drug in," like a chicken with its head cut off, like a bat out of hell, like a duck on a June bug, as mean as a snake, or as naked as a jaybird. Soft drinks in the South are never, ever called pop. They are known as Cokes. Even Pepsis can be called Cokes. Dopes, cold drinks, belly washes, and soda waters. One time that a brand name is used is when an expatriate Southerner in some godforsaken land like New York City develops a hankering for an RC and a moon pie. An RC is a Royal Crown Cola. A moon pie is 2 round pieces of chocolate-coated graham cracker with a marshmallow filling. Sometimes Southerners say things just to irritate any Yankees in hearing distance. Few things give a Southerner more pleasure than to politely step into the back of an elevator, then ask the Yankee by the buttons to mash the 4th floor, please. Darn tootin'. In the South, as in no other American region, people use language as it was surely meant to be employed. A lush, personal, emphatic treasure of coins to be spent slowly and for value. Time Magazine, September 1976. We're Southern, Mon. On the Sea Islands east of Beaufort, South Carolina, visitors encounter the last vestiges of the Gullah culture and language, which sounds vaguely Jamaican to visitors' ears. In reality, the sing-song dialect is left over from the slaves who were brought to the region from Angola and the Congo to grow the highly prized Sea Island cotton. Until recently, the Sea Islands were remote. Now, Yankee-based developers are making the former plantations into resorts. Southerners eat different. An obvious difference between Northerners and Southerners is what they see fit to eat. And there is no more broad dividing line than grits and sweet tea. It is a lucky Southerner who can find grits at all in a Northern restaurant, and an even luckier one if the restaurant knows how to make them from scratch rather than dumping a packet of instant grits into a bowl. Southerners have always found it puzzling and disgusting that Northerners, if faced with grits, will inevitably put sugar on them. Every Southerner knows that the thing to be done with a mound of grits is to form a depression in the center of the mound, drop in 2 pats of butter so the heat of the grits melts them, liberally add salt and pepper, and then mix in the butter. Southerners also know that cheese and grits is a match made in Southern heaven. Sweet tea is another aggravation for Southern visitors to the North. For reasons that are unfathomable, Northerners just do not seem to know how to brew tea. It is not difficult to boil water and drop in tea bags and sugar, but that skill eludes most Yankee restaurateurs. Most Yankee tea is instant, that tinny tasting concoction that was almost certainly invented by someone north of the Mason-Dixon line. Making good sweet tea, often expressed as one word, sweet tea, is just not that difficult an art form that it cannot be mastered by Northerners. They should work on it as a gesture of goodwill to their neighbors in the South. It is impossible to find boiled peanuts in the North, and impossible not to drive more than 10 miles on a rural road in the South without encountering a roadside stand with a big pot of them steaming away. There are tricks to boiling peanuts. The water has to have just the right amount of salt, and the peanuts have to stay in the water just long enough so the nut can be sucked from the open shell with little effort. Southerners like to fry stuff. There is nothing to rival the taste of a thin steak coated with a little flour, then pan-fried in a black skillet that has been frying stuff for years. Likewise, pan-fried cornbread with tiny chips of onions and red pepper inside, made in that same skillet, tastes better than anything a fancy northern restaurant could dress up and put on a plate. As for deep frying, if it can be coated in batter, Southerners will eat it. That is why some places in the South offer alligator and rattlesnake. No one knows how to sauté those Southern natives, but a goodly number of good old boys will tell you how to deep fry them, and that they taste like chicken. Grits in New York? The effects of immigration north and south can be seen in the sales of some foods. According to one source, more grits are sold in New York City to descendants of blacks who moved north during the Depression than are sold in Atlanta to the transplanted Yankees who are still frightened to taste them. If God made a finer meal than this, then he must have kept it for himself. The late Georgia humorist Louis Grizzard hit Southerners' love of barbecue right on the head with that one. Note that I said love of barbecue rather than love to barbecue, because most everyone outside the South thinks of barbecue as a verb, what you do to your food, not what it is. This is not just an issue of semantics. When Southerners talk about barbecue, they're talking about a tradition going back to pre-colonial times. The word barbecue is thought to be derived from barabaku, which was used by the Taino people of the Bahamas and Hispaniola to mean sacred fire pit. The word, and the technique of slow cooking an animal carcass over a hole in the ground, migrated to America with the European explorers. Over time, different groups throughout the South developed distinctly different styles of barbecue, which remain today as some of the best indicators of where in the heck you are. Any Southerner worth his sauce knows that East Carolina style is thin but full of pepper and vinegar, and that the closer you get to the Appalachians, the sweeter and thicker it gets. And, of course, there's the famous Brunswick stew, which no Georgia hostess would be caught dead without. Before the War of Northern Aggression, Southerners ate around 5 pounds of pork for every 1 pound of beef they consumed, and today most barbecue is still made from pork. But you can find Southern devotees of other meats. Texans sure love their beef brisket, and Kentuckians have perfected the art of the mutton barbecue. This book is continued on Disc 2.